Are we live? Hey guys. Hello, Emma's grandpa. Storm, Eagle, Mike, Relaxing Soul. Welcome, people. We are live on Periscope and on YouTube. I'm not using Twitch at the moment. So, welcome. Let's see who's around tonight. If you're not shopping, hello, Emma's grandpa. So, maybe you guys finished shopping, you're back home. Relaxed. Howdy, Garrigs. Hello. So let me just monitor the YouTube channel since I'm not yet on that. Give me a sec here. Great gold. Okay, so welcome. So come on in, people. Come on in to Periscope and to YouTube. Jay Colby, I haven't seen you in a while. Hello, Garrigs. Haven't seen you guys in a while, so welcome. And if you're not seeing them YouTube, it's because those people are on Periscope. Hello, Aurora Velikovsky. Aurora Velikovsky, how are you doing? Thank you for speaking out. When you come to my channel, you should talk. Why is designing a new phone so hard? Have you tried it? Anyway, that's what we're going to talk about. Why is it so hard? Well, have you tried designing one? You can't even, put the old ones to use like this. This is an old phone. We can't even figure out how to make it work. So, yes, it's a very difficult thing. Very difficult thing. YouTube is fine. Hello, if you're, let's see. Hello. So I want a phone with a flexible screen. So you want that Motorola Razr or the Fold? So is that what you want? Stacy G30. How you doing, guys? So our topic tonight is just discussing a little bit about phones and really for those of you who have followed what I've been working on. Hello, AMG. Getting a Pine phone, which I'm hoping will arrive in the next couple of weeks. I hope, if we're lucky, we're gonna get it in the next couple of weeks, and that's a Linux phone. So we're gonna get a Linux phone soon in December. And when we get the Linux phone, some of the questions that we're going to have is what operating system to use on it. Why exactly was it so difficult to make a phone? Currently, there are only two companies making different phones. Most phones are made for Android and iOS. And even Apple doesn't make that many phones. I mean, it makes a couple of phones a year, mostly one, and then two, a large and a small one, and using the same technology. And it doesn't really change much from year to year. They change the hardware a little bit. But when you actually think about, saying maybe you should design a new phone so that you can, do something different and maybe get rid of the spyware and spying that happens on a phone. Maybe you can do it yourself. And some people have actually asked me why haven't I designed the phone? And if you know how difficult it is to make one, including making one of these new ones work, then you will see how complex it is. You ordered a Pine 64 about an hour ago. I used to dabble in Android ROM and mod development years ago, hoping I feel somewhat at home with Pine. And well, that's great. Those are great things to hear, because then we'll have something solid to talk about here. Librem 5 is not coming soon. No, my Librem 5 is not slated to arrive till after April. After April, and that's probably the majority. There may be some lucky ones who might get it in March, but the majority of us will get it after April. So that is very far away. So in the meantime, I'm getting a Pine phone soon, in the next couple weeks, and then at the moment I'm using this really every day. This is a Nexus 5, which is how old is the Nexus 5? 5 years old maybe, and this one is running Ubuntu Touch. And I kind of intrigued my family this Thanksgiving, because I said, oh, I see them all with their iPhones, and I'm like saying, look at what I have, and they're like looking at it, they don't recognize it, and they say, what is that? And yeah, Nexus 5, and I think this will be usable for a while. So I still have, as you know, I've been selling some of these with my with an installation of Ubuntu Touch. I still have some, so I'm still ordering them, and they're still being bought. So if you want one, I still have the Nexus 5 with Ubuntu Touch loaded, and then you can compare that with Pine phones and Librem 5. Librem 5 is so far away. I'm not even going to talk about it for now until it gets a little closer. But the Pine phone is the only thing that's coming soon, and there may be some things you're not going to like to hear about the Pine phone, and this is some of the difficulties. Hello, Bill Bob, nerdy. Okay, Bill Bob. Okay, hello, Bill Bob. Bill Bob, nerdy. So one of the things that let's start with that, the Pine phone. So the Pine phone is one of these newer phones that were built. And it was not as hard for the people at Pine 64 to build a Pine phone compared to, let's say, the Purism people. It was hard, but not nearly as hard as it was for the people at Purism. And yet, when you actually see the weaknesses of the phone, and you start to see that, it wasn't that easy. In fact, it's still not. And it has limitations that you don't even think about. Believe it or not, this is quite a bit more powerful than a Pine phone. So some of you are looking at the Pine phone as, the full solution, and yet you ought to consider why you're thinking about that versus something that's a little bit more powerful for now, while we await the progress. I do want the Pine phone to succeed. I want the Librem 5 to eventually succeed as well. So it's Bill Bob. Yes, okay, it's Bill Bob. Lost my phone. You lost your phone. Okay. Savvy. Will this incremental approach to phone design on top of existing infrastructure really be a safe private solution? The two phones that are being released, the Librem 5 and the Pine 64. Pine 64 is going to be available much faster. Are good privacy solutions. They do work, and they are, in my mind, effective privacy solutions. Although, it may not be 100%, but at least in the 90% percentile. So that's not bad. So anyway, before we get into that, how was shopping today, people? Did you spend a lot of time shopping? It's funny to lose your Apple iPhone. They can no longer track you within 6 feet. Hello, entire Meyer. Well, my iPhone is right here, and I only use it for broadcasting. It actually doesn't leave anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. So they're saying, boy, this guy must be disabled. He doesn't go anywhere anymore. This iPhone used to travel everywhere, and now he's just at home. Must have some disability. Maybe I broke my leg or something. Or maybe I just got too old. Or maybe I'm sick. So maybe that's what the story is. Anyway, just some little things that you don't know about some of the limitations of a Pine phone and a Pine 64, just to show you some of the difficulties here on those two phones. Did you check the Wi-Fi? $1,000 spent, and you didn't buy any Tor routers and Bytes Wi-Fi and alarm systems and Brax alarms and things like that. Wow. Of course, Snapdragon 800 is better than Mali 400, but I think we're gonna be okay, and these open source phones are going to become popular. Well, we don't know, but let me just say this. Let's talk about just one aspect of it to show you how difficult it is. Why is it that this old phone, this is the Nexus 5, as you know, there's after the Nexus 5, there's a Pixel 1, Pixel 2, Pixel 3. Okay, and so this Pixel 4 now, right? And so Nexus 5, Pixel 1, Pixel 2, Pixel 3, Pixel 4. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the age of this, okay? And yet, the Wi-Fi on this is A, B, G, N, and AC, meaning all of them. So this has all the Wi-Fi variations, including AC. Well, the Pine phone and the Librem 5 are only A, B, G, N. That means that their Wi-Fi is basically older than 5 years. Older. Maybe more, maybe even 7 years. So ABGN is the only thing they can put on these phones. And you're like saying, wow, we're getting a new Pine phone, new Librem 5, and the Wi-Fi is only ABGN. I mean, it can't be that mysterious to make ABGN and AC like this. So you can't have fast, high-speed Wi-Fi unless you have AC. And it's very hard to find AC. In fact, the Raspberry Pi doesn't have AC. This does not have AC. Okay, you can see the difficulty here. Why is that? I don't know why that is. That's one of the questions I have. Why is that in this day and age, and the cheapest phones can have ABGN and AC, and these two new phones, Pine 64 and the Librem 5, why couldn't they get some AC chips instead of just ABGN? Why? It's a very good question to ask. I don't really know what the answer is, but it's a little bit it's one of the bigger issues with these new phones. For example, if you're watching videos, you want to get a little bit higher speed, and if you don't have AC, then you're pretty much stuck at going to be N will be the fastest you can use. It's because open source hardware is only now just beginning. It will expand more as we go forward. I'm a firm believer that the future will be bright for at least those who want it to be bright. But anyway, it's that's an assumption. I don't really know why it would be a firmware question to talk about AC. I mean, it's an old standard. It's nothing new. AC has been around for a long time. So, how old has AC been around? Could be a decade already. So a decade of AC, and we're not seeing it on, it's on this phone that's 5-6 years old. Okay, this has AC on it. The new phones do not. Right? Now here's the other thing. Do you promote mobile banking transactions on these new phones? Versus what? An old phone? I just got a Wi-Fi 6 router. Why, Rex? Why did you not get a Brax Wi-Fi router? Or you already have one? Okay, so but that's not a router question. I'm talking about phones themselves. Having a nice router doesn't help if your devices themselves don't use the high speed of the router, which is most of them. Did you read the article about Google's quantum computer? No, AMG. That's what is new with that? I was talking about that 3 years ago. Is that something new? Which pixel is your Nexus 5? 1, 2, 3, or 4? It's not a pixel, it's a Nexus. It's the series, Marco, is Nexus 4, Nexus 5. I don't know what's before Nexus 4. Nexus 4, Nexus 5, Pixel 1, Pixel 2, Pixel 3, Pixel 4. So you get that? So Nexus 4, Nexus 5, Pixel 1, Pixel 2, Pixel 3, Pixel 4, and there's an XL in there too. I think, is the XL a larger one or it's the same thing? I'm not sure. I'm in it. So yeah, this is pre-Pixel 1. By the way, I also have a Pixel 1. Pixel 1's actually a pretty good phone. So a Pixel 1 is still pretty good and fast, and much faster than this. And it's actually a very nice phone. Actually, from what I hear, Google went from the Nexus, which was supposed to be a bargain phone, because these were only like $300, 300, it's under 400. And then when they went to the Pixel, then the quality went up. The Pixel is more iPhone-like in terms of quality. So, and I have a Pixel 1, and it's definitely feeling like an iPhone. I mean, it's fast. It's it's snappy, and I bought it used, and it works great. So I use that. I use it for development, and that's still around. However, I cannot put in Linux on it. You cannot unlock that sucking phone, so I can't unlock it. Some dude, hello, some dude. So anyway. Let's talk CPU for a moment here, because Aurora was talking about CPUs. And let's talk CPUs for a moment. So let's talk about these new phones. So did you go out there and buy a phone when you went to your Black Friday shopping? Did you go out and run and get a phone and looked at all the fancy phones at Best Buy and said, ooh, look at that. I'm going to buy one of those. I go to the phone section and I was like, I prefer this. I don't really, I do have there's nothing wrong with my nice iPhone. I mean, this is a iPhone 10 and nothing wrong with this. And, I can't imagine the new ones being significantly better than it. It's marginally better at best. And I don't take this out of the house anymore. I don't really want it. Yes, it's still a very nice phone. It's still snappy and everything. But I don't really want to get spied on, so I don't bring it. Apple's new phone for next year is now being hyped. Are there new security claims featured on this phone? What? Hello, Nabil. What security features, Savvy? Are you kidding me? Actually, they're very good at security features. They're just not good at privacy features. I paid for my Librem 5. Marco, yes, you bought and paid for Librem 5 just like me, and I'm not going to get it till April. Did the Terminator CPU melt when he was lowered into hot liquid steel? Just bought Apple AirPods. By the way, did you guys, I have a video about Skynet, and, it was kind of distressing, so I have a video about Skynet and the Terminator stuff, and, I'm using an analogy relating to Skynet. And then the Terminator movie came out, and you know what they did with the last Terminator movie? They killed John Connor, and they got rid of Skynet. So that's like, Zuck, what am I supposed to do? So they're making us forget Skynet. I wonder if Apple and Google had something to do with that. Hey, let's get rid of Skynet so people like tinfoil hat people cannot refer to it anymore. Maybe that's what they did. So, by the way, I'm working on changing my set here. So I'm gonna work hard next week to changing my set. This will be a whole different setup. I've just been out. In fact, that's what I was doing today on Black Friday shopping. I was like getting pieces that I needed to redo my setup in here. Hello, shocking guy. So I'm gonna redo my setup, and hopefully it's a new camera too, and we'll see how that works. We're gonna go and see if we can go more cinematic. So we'll see. Change the lighting and maybe make it more moody. You're so much concerned about privacy, and you use YouTube. Aren't you gonna be so exposed? Are you the one who asked that on a comment? What? How am I exposed, Tan Moy? How am I exposed? Do you really know who I am, Tan Moy? Are you saying you really know who I am? So a lot of people are like, one of the first things you do before you go and create a public persona is decide what your public persona will be, and it's not my normal persona. So, so you are quite incorrect, Tan Moy. Quite incorrect, because I thought this out. Have you? Did you think it out when you went to the internet and said, "I'm going to use the name Tan Moy Sadhukan"? Did you actually think that when you went to the internet? You see, I did. So I did, and you can go search me on the internet, and you might actually even find. You might find me on Facebook. You might find me on Instagram. You might find me on all these channels, but that's not me. I'm not on those platforms, yet people are using my name in various places. It's very interesting. So yeah, and sometimes my picture with a different name. It's Hello P Yu Yin. So yes, I thought this out. Tan Moy, I'm asking you if you thought it out. I'm afraid to buy a smart TV. Uh, Hello Jinx, will they ever make a device where I never have to wipe myself? Where I never have to wipe myself? Yes, go to Japan. The new Nokia 800 has KaiOS bundled with FB and WhatsApp. Well, it's not trustworthy when you use FB and WhatsApp. So, shouldn't that be obvious? How could you possibly be secure using FB and Zuckbook and WhatsApp and Instagram? Uh, anyway, so let's talk about the CPU of the new phones. So two companies decided we're going to make a phone on our own, and we're not going to be following the major manufacturers using Android. So the Android makers, the LGs, the Motorola's, Samsung, and so on. We're not going to be part of that, or Huawei, or whatever. So we're not going to be part of that set. And we're just a little company, and we're going to make a new phone. And so, in this case, the people at Purism said we're going to use an IMX. What is it? IMX8M. And then correct me if I'm wrong with the digits in there. There's a bunch of M's and a bunch of 8's. And then the one from Pine 64 is using an all-winner 64. Now, if you look at the specs, you find that they are using something called an A53 Cortex. That's the name of the CPU from ARM. It's an ARM CPU, A53 Cortex, made by different manufacturers. The NXP makes the IMX8M, and then the one used by the Pine phone is an all-winner 64 made by All-Winner, which is a Chinese company. So the NXP company, I believe, is in Holland. I'm not sure if it's just there. I think it's all over Europe. And so anyway, so you see, these are companies that say, hey, let's come up with a brand new phone, and we have the ability to build it with any CPU we want. Now, if you actually research it like I did, because the problem is how the heck do you benchmark a chip that you've never seen before. I don't have any IMX8M chips, nor do I have a all-winner 64, but I actually have, and I didn't realize this, but I do have a A53 Cortex, or something similar to an A53 Cortex device. And the device that I have that's very similar is a Raspberry Pi. There. So a Raspberry Pi, and sorry about the effect there because it's green. So there's a Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi is an ARM device, quad-core processor, and if I recall, it's pretty much similar, or I think it's even a model ahead of the A53 Cortex, ARM Cortex. As it turns out, the NXP chip, the IMX8M chip that's being used on the Librem 5, as it turns out, that is also an A53 Cortex, 4-core, quad-core, the same as the all-winner 64, being sold as a Pine board, Pine 64 board. So Pine 64 makes a Raspberry Pi equivalent, and they're using that all-winner 64 chip on there, and then they're using the same chip for the phone. Now, what is interesting here is the A53 Cortex phone is not very fast. It's not very fast. And here's the other thing I want to let you know. This Nexus 5 is faster than an all-winner 64. It could be even faster than a Librem 5. And this is actually fairly slow compared to, let's say, even a Pixel 1. Do you see what I'm getting at here? This is not a super fast phone, and yet this is faster than the Pine 64. And this is old. This is faster than the Pine 64 and the Librem 5. So again, what the heck happened there when they have difficulties even getting a fast chip? That means that, an A53 Cortex is, many moons slower than, it's really, really slow compared to, let's say, this iPhone 10. And this is an iPhone 10. This is not an 11 Pro. This is a 2-year-old phone, right? And, these new iPhone 10 and above, they're like as powerful as some laptops. Can you believe these phones are as powerful as laptops? That's why they're priced like a laptop now. Zuck, I paid $1,300 for this. And this is as powerful as a laptop. Maybe not the high-end laptop, but some laptops. And to put that on a phone is like pretty amazing that, what can you do? What can you do with a phone? But my question is, you can see how difficult it is, because somebody who had a chance to choose a CPU, they had a chance. I'm going to make a new phone. I can choose any CPU I want. I can choose any Wi-Fi I want. And like I told you, they got to choose a Wi-Fi, and they chose ABGN, and they don't even have AC. So an old phone has ABGN AC. They can't even beat an old phone with CPU, can't beat an old phone with Wi-Fi, can't beat this old phone with memory, can't beat this old phone with the camera in megapixels. This will have more megapixels than a Pine phone. Now, Pine phone's a lot cheaper, but still, think about the difficulty here. Why can't they do it? You would think that would be cheap enough, and you can see that it's not such a simple solution. Anyway, let me just read the comments here. Tanmoy said, YouTube, I meant Google knows you from your face, your address, bank info, because you'll earn from YouTube. Yeah, they know my corporate. Yeah. They know my corporate information. Yeah, you have to think. You have to plan it out, Tanmoy. It's not. I didn't say it was easy, but you do have to plan. You do have to plan it out. So yes, it is planned out. So yeah, they know my face, and if you Google me, then my face will come up, and you do reverse, and it will come up to my YouTube channel. It's perfect, exactly the way I want it. So you decide, Tanmo, you decide what image you want to create on the internet. Sometimes for many people, it's too late. You can't do it. I can because I've actually not been on the internet, visibly till I did live broadcast. So it's I don't have to worry about it. I planned it out, but the average person will probably have to worry about it because they didn't think about it. So no, Tanboy, I'm not a beginner at this. I kind of know what I was getting into, and somebody had to do it, and I'm probably as good as any as an example of how to do it because I was caring about my privacy probably 20 years before the rest of you did. So I was already thinking about it when the internet just started. When the internet started, I already knew what I could or could not do on the internet. It was just instinctive to me. I already knew that there are certain things I would never say online. I already knew that there are certain things I would never put on an email, even an email. I don't, I'm very careful what I put on an email. Um, Even for work, I very very careful about what I send an email, like a negative thing. Yeah, that's why because I understood that email was never private, and the internet is not private, so I was always ready. So that's a good question, Tanmoy, and it's hopefully that you understand that with a bit of care can be done, but for most of you it's probably not possible. But since I put a lot of care into my digital life since the beginning, I mean, this is a long-term process. I mean, it's like 25 years of thinking about it, and you're saying, there's the internet. What do I do? And 25 years ago, I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do on the internet and what I'm not going to do on the internet. And and I'm on the internet since the very beginning, and yet you'd never connect anything that I've done because I knew exactly what I was doing. So hopefully you learn from me and you can do the same thing. But the problem is if you don't start now, if you come around and do it midstream and you already went to Facebook, then a lot of it's a little bit too late. Okay, hello Fritz. Okay, Tanmoy. So that's part of the issue. It takes a bit of planning to do it right, and it's not perfect even for me. It's not perfect. People will dox me and do things like that, but at least it's I don't make it easy. I don't make it easy. So Davy Jones, hello Davy Jones. So I don't know. I don't have to be modest about anything, Davy Jones. I'm just telling you the way it is. So anyway, hopefully you take my lessons to heart and you can extend that to lessons about behavior and just one thing that I knew that perhaps you don't necessarily know, Tanmoy, uh, because I'm going to guess that that's your real name, is that you do not ever use your real name on the internet. Never. Never. So I am not on LinkedIn either, and I am not on Facebook. Okay, so not true. I was on Facebook with fake names. So yeah. Anyway, so just to give you an idea of how to approach that. Anyway, back to there's always plastic surgery. Frosty, what did you redact? I didn't read your comment yet, and you redacted it. Fiber congestion routing issues will be will kill a lot of functionality of Skynet. Google's Stadia is a great example. Fiber congestion routing. Now that's a pretty heavy there. Fiber congestion routing issues will kill a lot of functionality of Skynet. You mean something will stop the spying? Wow. Why are Indian guys so oblivious to privacy? I have to tell you, that's a good question, Savvy, because it's almost like if you compare like Americans, U.S. people, to some of the other countries in Asia, for example, India, Philippines, same thing. They really have they think themselves as unimportant ants in the world, and they don't really think that anyone would care that there's an importance to being tracked or followed or anything like that. They don't think that's an issue. And it could be that, it's not yet their time to be spied on at the moment. Although I don't actually believe that. But that's maybe what they think. As you know, I told you, it takes planning to do the internet. Your presence on the internet is permanent. So it's something you plan out decades ahead, and you say, well, what image do I want on the internet 20 years from now? What about my children? What about those parents who's been putting videos and pictures and activities and things of a kid from the time they were babies to the time they're not even past the COPPA age, Child Online Protection Act age, and they don't get a choice. They basically get plastered on the internet because their parents said, "Oh, we don't care. We're going to plaster you over the internet." And now, let's say that the kids did something naughty when they were young. Maybe they cried a little bit extra when they were small. And now when they're bigger and somebody's going to look at that and say, "I don't like the personality of this guy. Look at him as a kid. He was pretty naughty kid. So he's probably pretty naughty now as an adult. Why do I need to subject a kid to that future where he or she doesn't get a choice?" And a parent decided to flood the internet with information about a kid, and they don't get any input. And it's like saying we don't get a chance to grow. Well, our personality is defined by what somebody put on the internet. We don't get to grow. We don't get to mature. That's not possible. It's zucked up. Is there a preferred wireless provider that does not collect metadata? No, all of them will collect metadata, Mark, of course. Of course. So, I mean, some of them say that they collect less metadata. One of my favorite providers is Ting.com, which is a reseller, I believe, for T-Mobile. And they make claims there that they collect less information. So I do recommend Ting because it's cheaper. But I don't actually believe that. I don't believe that they have some less capacity to spy on you. Of course, all carriers have to, especially T-Mobile will get that information anyway. Because there's no way to stop the phone from being a tracker. This is a tracker device. I recall Rob saying KaiO is derived from Firefox and therefore considered to be safer than Android and iOS. That's correct, Fear Lutzi. That is correct. The problem is your behavior. So you're saying I'm not going to use Android iOS, and so I'm going to use KaiOS or even Ubuntu Touch. And then you decide you're going to use Ubuntu Touch with Facebook, or you're going to use KaiOS with Facebook. How the hell do you get safe with that? Yes, it may not completely spy on you in the same way because it doesn't have all the information. But, I mean, certainly you have to really think about what the heck you're doing. If your habits if your habits are such that you can't take care of your privacy on your own, the device isn't going to do it for you. There's some discipline you have to do. I really can't help anyone that decides to be on Facebook, because if you're going to be on Facebook, there's no protection for your privacy until you stop Facebook. And it only starts improving marginally once you leave Facebook. It will take probably a very, very long time before your absence on Facebook will actually pay back. So it's very, very hard. I compared it to native Linux OS, like Pure OS. Let's see, did I miss that conversation there? Is there a, let me see, actually its saturation of routing infrastructure is introducing data corruption, streaming congestion, IP architecture not conducive to traffic we are flooding internet with today. I know Frosty Flake, but I'm not sure what that has to do with being spied on. Are you saying we get less spied on because there's congestion on the network? I don't think so. Mostly it's consumption of data in video that's consuming the network. There's some numbers that say Netflix and YouTube make up most of the internet traffic in the world. That's not really where the data is coming from, though. The data is coming from you to them. The data that you get from downloading video is not that important. It's the uploading, which is, of course, very little data. I like the idea of being able to design how I'm being spied on. So anyway, just a new AMG, just a new prop that I'm preparing for, because I'm gonna change my background here. So got a new camera, new lens, new lighting, new props, and such, new paint. And so we'll be, I'm going to try out different things this coming week and see if we can start the year with a new look. So yeah, so that's the plan, is in the next transition December to a new look, including the videos and live stream, to have a different look by sometime in December. So I'm gonna start and see where we can get by next week. Probably have to tweak it, but that's the plan. I'm going to start probably on Sunday and start reworking this area and see where we get. So hopefully it'll be better for you, and say you don't get bored with my scenery here. So anyway, so back to our discussion about phones. One of the things that is kind of interesting is there's the Pine phone and the Pine phone and the Librem 5. Is what OS can you even use on it? So obviously you're not going to use Android and iOS, because that's the entire purpose, is to see if we can stop spying from iOS and Android. Even though iOS says they're the privacy phone, it's BS. Does that plant have a twist of mint? Anyway, if you get a Pine 64, so I ordered a Pine 64, and since I was one of the first ones to buy it, I'm expecting that I'll get one hopefully in a couple of weeks. So crossing my fingers, and I can talk to the owner of Pine 64 and ask where my order is, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'll just let the order come in incognito and see when I get it, like a normal person, and I'm not going to ask such a favor. But when I get the Pine 64, and again, I want to have the proper expectations. Don't expect that phone to be fast. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now, for those of you saying, should I get a Pine 64 phone or should I get a some older phone? And I'm going to tell you, this one is faster. Okay, so don't come around and saying I didn't tell you that. This will be faster. Okay, hello Twin Mom. This one, hello Lenny PR and Monkey J is causing trouble here on Periscope. So my point is that it's increasingly getting corrupted in routing errors, return data, location data mismatch, because streaming traffic creates overload of network and is disassociated. I don't think so, Frosty Flake, from the direction, because the traffic downstream going to you from Netflix and so on, YouTube, of course, has a lot of data. But as you know, there's a lot of free bandwidth going the other direction. And there isn't a lot of data to, because, for example, when you take a photo, the metadata is in the photo itself. So unless there's you're saying that I'm not getting an upload in its original form, I don't think so. That's, of course, not the case. I mean, the error correction does work. I do get a verified image at the other end. So the data, therefore, is intact as well. It's intact in the image. So when you send a picture to Facebook, the metadata that has your location, the serial number of your device, and whether maybe even IMEI, I'm not sure. It depends on the phone. And that's sent to Facebook. Facebook can then extract that data, and that's in your photos. In case you're wondering about that. Any update on the Bluetooth fix on the Nexus 5? There is a update that they're working on to the Nexus 5 to get a newer driver, and hopefully that will fix it. The problem, after looking at it a little bit more deeply, the problem with the Bluetooth on the Nexus 5 goes back to the original Linux kernel driver for Bluetooth. It's called BlueZ. And here's the story. Who asked that question again? I forgot. Stalking Horse. So the Nexus 5, the Ubuntu Touch specifically, is using Ubuntu 16.04, which is 2016, and the kernel, Linux kernel on this is kernel 3.4 versus the current one, which is 5 point whatever the kernel is currently for Linux. So the driver for BlueZ is the one, it's probably updated to the latest one based on kernel 5 whatever. Okay? I forget what the kernel version is now. This one is using 3.4 kernel. So the driver that came with it originally is 3.4, the 3.4 Linux kernel. So there's no direct pathway to get an update of the BlueZ or Bluetooth driver directly into the distribution for a 3.4 kernel, since the driver is in the kernel. So I was trying to look, to be honest with you, Frosty Flake, I actually was wondering that, and I was actually looking at GitHub and trying to see what the source code looks like to see, what the issue is. And the problem is BlueZ is compiled for Linux 5 point whatever. So in order for them to put it into this version of Bluetooth of Ubuntu Touch, they have to take a newer driver and see if it works with the 3.4 kernel, and that may or may not work. There could be what are called regressions, and that's part of the problem because this is running on an older OS, an older kernel. That's not the same thing that's going to happen with a Pine phone. See, the Pine phone is going to use possibly Ubuntu Touch would be using the older kernel. So, okay, so that could be an issue. But it also has the capability for running different OSs such as Debian, post-market OS, and use a current version of the kernel, 5 point whatever it is, and use latest drivers all from mainline Linux. So then they're not going to have the same problems. If there's a bug, it can be fixed a little bit faster because they don't have to worry about shutting down the version. This cannot be expanded to anything higher than 3.4 kernel because it will be incompatible with Ubuntu 16.04 and everything else will break. So that's one of the reasons they kind of have to put a hold on that, because the version is moved only in big movements. So that's part of the problem. And the other thing is that, an Ubuntu Touch is made for phone use, and they don't really need to worry about, how the rest of Unix, Linux is operating, because you're not really going beyond what the standard apps are that's provided for this. So for this platform. So they don't have to rush doing it, and they can keep it more stable. On the other hand, it causes some problems because now we have a Bluetooth issue that can't be resolved without pulling in a newer driver, and no one can do that except for the Linux kernel people, meaning Linus Torvalds and the rest of those guys have to approve the driver before they can be included, and they're not going to change it on a Linux 3.4 kernel. So that's kind of the issue. Direction is immaterial because router overload, sending pick, etc. is different associated issues. Yeah, Frosty, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to aside from having a slow internet, you're implying there's some data loss, which with error checking, I don't see that. If I upload a file, I get the file. It may be slow. So I see speed as an issue. That should be obvious. And since most of the internet is being bogged down by video. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not collecting any more of your data because your data is inaccurate. I don't see how that can happen. Because, error checking and CRC checks and whatever, the way TCP/IP works, you send data, and then it has to do a CRC check to make sure that the original data is the same as it was sent. Or D or E. What direction? What was that? Glarb. Not the answer I want, but the answer I need. What is the answer you want? The answer you want is that there's a fix. And that's, I'm saying there is a fix that they announced, and so I'm expecting it in the next update, probably OTA 11. So we're on 12. This is OTA 11. So probably the next update. Maybe it's in the Edge version or the development version of it right now. So don't know. So the guys from UB Port said, if you want to verify that Bluetooth works on a current Linux version, if there's no bug on BlueZ, the Bluetooth driver for Linux, take a laptop to your car and see if your laptop can connect to your car. If your Linux laptop can connect to your car, then the issue is solved. If your laptop cannot connect to your car, then the issue is with the original driver that's in the current kernel. So that's what we just need to prove. And so somebody said it was some changes coming. I don't know if they actually. I need to sit in the car and see if Bluetooth is actually working as expected on Linux. I don't know the answer to that. What are we going to do when we're forced into using 5G? That's still very far away, Angel. So we still have years before we're not. We're not even in the 5G world yet. And even when that happens, there'll be many years of LTE. So we're not there yet, and there's a cost to 5G as well. And people may say, well, we don't want to pay extra, because the idea of 5G is they charge you more because you want your life to be in video. I can imagine that, what are the kind of changes in behavior that will happen when you start using 5G. And one possibility is that people won't like to text and call anymore, and they want everything to be done by FaceTime. Well, I don't like to FaceTime everything I do. I mean, I could be naked. I could be in the bathroom. I could be, I could be having a private conversation. I don't want to do FaceTime. But some people, that's how they talk. That some young people, they grew up with that, so they kind of want to be like Star Wars. They want to, pull up their watch and say, Scotty, beam us up right there. So they want like FaceTime on their Apple Watch. So that's not my style, but that's what they're pushing you to do on 5G. Everything video. So everything video. That's what 5G is about, because that's the only reason you need that kind of bandwidth. So can't get the message. Don't have my phone. Did you once say that a secondary router was required when using Bytes VPN? Marco, a primary router is required to use Bytes VPN. Primary, not secondary. The reason is that Brax Wi-Fi, being a VPN router, will force all of your traffic to be in a VPN. And as you know, some places ban VPNs. Now I can do Netflix on a Brax Wi-Fi. If you put your VPN on your computer will often be rejected by Netflix. But I don't have any problem doing Netflix on Bytes VPN. However, some banks may block it, and some other places may block it, and in which case then you may have no alternative, since the only route in your house is to go through the VPN router. So in order for that to have a option, and also people doing gaming, and they want higher speed, faster ping rates and all that. If you want a faster ping rate, then you can't go through VPN, because that'll slow you down. So you need a pathway to have non-VPN and a VPN. The only way to do that is to have a primary router that's not a VPN. Now, to that, you then plug in a Brax Wi-Fi router. This does not have to be Wi-Fi, by the way. The new version can work wired. You can plug routers into this, like Wi-Fi routers, and it will VPN everything that goes through the Ethernet port. So you can do that and plug this into the existing router. It needs a primary router for DHCP. Okay? Because, again, you need another route that's not VPN. So I don't recommend that this be your only router, because you're going to come complain to me and say, my bank doesn't want to let me transact because it's on a VPN. And yes, that may happen. So you have to have some insurance. You can have an alternative if you need it. And so my main approach is that this is plugged into another router, and that router is plugged into the modem. So don't make this the only router. But use this 90% of the time or more by using the VPN router, and that will make it safer for you. So that's what I recommend. No, it's a network operating software defined network change on fly. So my point is that those minute data doc elements tracking us get corrupted associates now and with the wrong device individual. I don't know, Frosty Flake. I mean, I gotta have something specific. I'm pretty knowledgeable about TCP/IP. I mean, I've been working with low-level TCP/IP since the beginning of the internet. I wrote my own, web servers and other servers with raw TCP/IP and UDP and all this, and so I understand how all that works. And what you're saying is theoretical, but it doesn't connect with what I know about how TCP/IP works. So, uh, to me, if the data is wrong, then the data gets resent, which can result in slowness because it has to keep resending. But I don't know. I don't know that as being the same as saying that the data is inaccurate. So, which is kind of a what you're suggesting there, and maybe you know something I don't. I just from just my knowledge of TCP/IP, I don't understand how that is actually translated to actual bits and bytes being missent. I'm pretty low level. You can talk to me at a low level and say, in the TCP/IP packet, this packet piece of information is lost and it's not. Packets the way that it's on the internet, packets are sent separately. So packets, let's say a packet is sent in chunks, right? So you get a chunk here, a chunk there. Let's say it's in 512 byte chunks. It gets to the destination reassembles the chunks. If you're saying that does not reassemble and the data is different, that will cause a failure and will cause it to retransmit. So so I don't understand the mechanics of what you're saying. I wasn't talking error correcting TCP, the SDNs and other telecom signaling. So the result will be slow internet. What you're saying is that there's some metadata associated with that I'm not aware of. So it's like a different layer. So not the TCP/IP layer. Okay, so you're talking about some other layer that may fit some other circumstance, but I'm not sure what that layer is. Even SS7 is on TCP/IP. SS7 is a higher layer than TCP/IP. So if you have an error at the Ethernet layer, slow down. That's the only thing I know it's going to do, is slow you down. Thanks for the Nexus 5 Ubuntu, Rob. Looking forward to the Linux smartphone experience. Did you order one, Terminus? Did you order one of these? Yeah, I still have a couple of these. I think that to be honest, I think this will be faster than PinePhone. So for now, I think this will be an experience that will sustain you for the next year. So I still think this is still a good deal. So because I'm afraid that your expectations of the Pine 64 may not be right, and then you come down and feel a little bit bad about it. So I want to set the proper expectations. It's very difficult to make these phones. I think that the Pine 64 phone is going to be kind of like a Raspberry Pi, and I actually saw it in the videos. If you launch a program, there's several seconds before the program launches. It's a lot faster on an Android or an iOS phone to launch an app, but because on a Pine 64, the program is being loaded from an SD card, that's a little bit of a slower method of launching. So some of you will look at that. If you look at the videos of the Librem 5 and the Pine phone, and you'll say, well, that's not as fast as my iPhone, and you're going to be correct. They're not going to be as fast at loading. The graphics and so on will not be as fast. It's certainly functional. The issue is it functional? I do believe it is fun. You received it today. I do believe it's functional, and I don't have a problem with it. I understand that I had to learn something new. There's certain, because it's a new OS, I had to learn how to swipe in and do all of that because it's a little bit different. Other than that, I'm able to do the basic things on it, and I'm okay with that. Some millennials out there will laugh at me and say, "Ha ha! Look at that guy. He can't use a new phone, and he got himself an old man's phone." And no, I have new phones too, but I certainly don't want to take this with me. I don't want this to know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't want this to know what I was shopping for today, and say, "Oh, you went to that store," and I don't want to see any ads and any tracking to show that. So anyway, this is good. Byte VPN was pretty easy to configure and not so complicated to understand. I like it. Less disconnects than NordVPN for me too. Thank you, Wade Stark, and thank you, Angel, for your nice things saying about Bytes VPN. Bytes VPN is I explained to you in the prior broadcast that my Bytes VPN servers are at often 1% CPU use, probably 1 to 2%. So you can see that it's not being stressed at all. There's not millions of you on one server. So I have large servers to ensure, and that means my profit margin is very small. My profit margin is very small. That's why it's called a premium VPN, because I'm squeezing in so few people. Squeezing is the wrong word because I'm not squeezing you in. You're actually you just all relax in going to the VPN that I made, Bytes VPN, and with very little traffic because that's intentional, and we don't have as many people having the same IP address, which means we're not targeted and identified as being on a VPN. Very few companies know that it's a VPN, and many of them will consider the VPN even though they don't know it's a VPN for sure. Correct. SS7 was not used as much as diameter. It's primary with LTE assumptions to be made in some of the handshake related metadata. Yeah, okay, Frosty Flake. You're talking about much more lower level. I see what you mean now. You're talking about lower level protocols, probably relating to wireless, not necessarily the internet, but LTE based protocols like radio protocols. Now I understand what you're saying. Hello, LZO. Actually, I cooked on Thanksgiving, and then when the guests came, I didn't feel too good, so I didn't feel well at all. So I actually just I didn't eat much, and I just kind of like just sat down and took it easy from then on. So I didn't like party hardy and get drunk or anything like that because I wasn't feeling too well. So what is the hardware upgrade potential for PinePhone or Librem 5? Read a comment that SSD could be added to Librem 5. How are you going to add an SSD to a Librem 5? You mean externally? Possible through USB-C. Possible too on a PinePhone. Although you probably won't need that. Thank you, LZ. Yeah, I'm just taking it easy and making sure I don't don't abuse myself here and then feel bad. So I'm feeling okay right now. Does Bytes VPN have backup power like batteries, etc., in case of grid down? You mean the servers? Yes, the servers are in a commercial server farm with backups. Otherwise, hello, Mystic Diana. Yes, the server itself is in a protected environment with power supplies and all that to make sure the network doesn't go down. Now, everything else can go down before it. Yeah, the network is expected to run in most cases, even with a disaster. They're I pay for these servers to be in server farms that it's not on Amazon. So these are on server farms that where they're created to make sure it survives an emergency. Okay. So thank you, Frosty Flake. So does let's see what question did I miss there. Bytes VPN a perfect honeypot? I showed you. I discussed this in my last video, and I'll make a recording. I was trying to do it live and I couldn't because of the way my setup is. But I want to show you that Bytes VPN only has 32 gigabytes on each server, 32 gigabytes for the entire server, and I can show you that my servers have 22 gigabytes free. So it's a 32 gigabyte server with 22 gigabytes free. The rest is for the operating system. Tell me where I can keep a log in there. Obviously, there's not enough space for a log. Next, I wanted to show you the routing table so you can see that your traffic that comes in through the VPN port, which is 1194, is being fed directly out to the network card with no interception in between. And you can see it in the routing tables. If you know anything about routing tables, you can see that, and you see there's absolutely nothing in my server. It doesn't pause anywhere in between. It doesn't go to a hard drive. There's no traffic. I don't capture anything. There's no knowledge about anything, and I don't want to have any data, because the last thing I want to do is for some third-party law enforcement to come to me and say, we want to get logs and an audit trail, and they can get everything they want because there's nothing. Okay, for my own sake, I don't want to have to respond to that. My servers have nothing. So thank you for asking that, because then gets me a chance to respond and say Bytes VPN is definitely super private and secure, because I personally use it and I don't want to be tracked. If I use the same server and you guys and some third party ask for log, then I'll be caught in there too. So in this case, there is no log. I can show you myself that dial into the server and look at the logs, and they're empty. They're empty. Hello, Emerald City Mystic Deanna. How are you doing? Well, perfect conditions like great bandwidth, mostly unknown, as VPN bundle. Well, perfect conditions like great bandwidth, mostly unknown, as VPN bundle with Tor, etc. Not sure what you're saying, let's see. I charge for my VPN. If you have a free VPN, you ought to wonder how somebody's making money with a free VPN, like Opera. Well, I can tell you how Opera makes their money with offering a free VPN. It's a honeypot. It's a honeypot. Great, but freezing. What is freezing? Hello, my Rutan, Mr. George Pitts. What's freezing? No freezing on my monitors here on YouTube, Periscope. Nothing. Everything is running fine. Everything is all green. Transmitting currently at 3K kilobits per second. So everything is moving very fast from my location here going to the servers. So I'm sure it's faster than Periscope can handle. So not freezing on my end here. So you must be freezing on your end of the connection. So anyway, 55 degrees here. Well, that's warm. What is it over here? Probably in the 40s. This is LA. There's snow. So um, Rob keeps this server with us on it to hide himself, so it's going to remain fast and secret as long as possible. Uh, exactly, Angel. I actually built these VPNs for myself. A lot of these products, that I'm sharing with you, I built for myself. The Brax Wi-Fi router, VPN router, uh, I meant for myself. I built for myself. Oh, temperature freezing, not YouTube freezing. I got confused. I got confused, Deanna. Yeah, so I built this for myself, and I said I want a system that will allow me to VPN my entire network, not just computer by computer, because it's so hard to set up individual computers uh, and put loading OpenVPN. And if you are like me, and I have so many phones now, I have so many devices. I have a stack of phones. I'm always testing like 5 or 6 phones at the same time. And if you have that, it's impossible to load OpenVPN on all of these. It's going to be time consuming. There are going to be times when it's not going to be on OpenVPN, on a VPN, and and that's a very, very serious problem, because as you watched in my latest video, even if somebody's using some of these apps on your phone and they're using your network, then they are potentially revealing your IP address with your location, and then that's being sold. So that bothers me a lot. And if I accidentally load up a weather app and then I'm not on the VPN, that's very, very bothersome. Um, I know I normally think technical freezing too. The Tor routing bundle is a common option. Even NordVPN has that option. The Tor routing bundle is a common option. Even NordVPN, they did not have that option before. I was the only one offering Tor routing. Are you saying they're offering it now? I was first. What version of the Librem 5 am I getting? Oh, you mean which batch? There's no version. They're all the same version. I'm on the Evergreen batch. So that's April, and some people are on the D batch, which is what's D? C is chestnut, B is birch, the D batch is, can't remember. So the D batch is March. So basically, how many people are in up to chestnut? Probably a handful. So most of us are getting, the thousands of buyers who actually get the thousands in Evergreen. Most people are in Evergreen. Most people are in the Evergreen batch, which is in April. So I'm not even going to get it till then. So, which is kind of frustrating, but what can I do? My parents can't understand how you're talking to me from the TV. Yes, Deanna's parents. I'm talking to Deanna on your TV. Will the Tor browser be able to run well on the Librem phone, on the Pine phone, or will it even slower because the phones will be slow? I think that's not going to be an issue. There's no Tor browser currently on the Ubuntu Touch. So currently there's no Tor browser on Ubuntu Touch. So if you're running Ubuntu Touch, there is no Dogwood. Okay, there's no Ubuntu Touch. Tor on Ubuntu Touch directly. But if you have my Bytes VPN, that can route you to Tor if you wanted to. So you can just choose that as your VPN option. I couldn't have Aspen. I wanted Evergreen. If I couldn't have Aspen, I wanted Evergreen. Yeah, but I'm not that. some dude, I actually am not even myself. Uh, am worried now about paying $720 for a Librem 5, and it's going to be barely faster than a Pine 64. Now Pine 64 is a fair price. It's $150, $180 with all the taxes and everything, and shipping. So $180, I'm not going to complain if the Pine 4 is slow because I expect it. But I'm paying $720 for a Librem 5, and it's going to be barely faster than a Pine 64, a Pine phone, with only ABGN Wi-Fi, with only 3 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, set your expectations. You may think it's slow. I don't think a Librem 5 is going to be fast. I honestly am a little bit concerned that this model may not be fast. You may want to wait till, a year later when they finally upgrade everything. So is there going to be hardware changes between Librem 5 batches? No. There aren't going to be hardware changes up to Evergreen, no. Next year's maybe the one they're going to sell in late 2020, that batch may be different, but I don't think so on the earlier batches. Maybe they'll move the antenna around, but mostly it'll be software changes and fitting. That's what they say. The fitting will be finer. So I wish I could show them the scenario. They think you're amazing. And I brought up the same issue, but built from scratch, separating baseband from CPU SF was the answer. Let's talk about the Pine 64, which did not do anything, so drastic as the Librem 5. Okay, so the purism said we want to have a separate baseband and we want to not have blobs and all this, but they can't even do that because the baseband has blobs and it has firmware controlled by somebody else. It's invisible. That's why it's called a blob. It's just like some binary software installed by somebody else in the firmware of a baseband, and we already know basebands can spy on you and have backdoors. So I have a couple of videos on that. So we know that to be true. So now you're saying that by plugging in the baseband into a separate M.2 socket, that somehow the Librem 5 is now superior. Now, let me tell you what the Pine 64 people did, because this is not publicly stated on their websites, but the owner of Pine 64 told me this. Okay, the owner of the head of Pine 64 told me this. So just make sure you understand this information. This is this is not yet in my videos, but TL, the owner of Pine 64, said to me that the baseband and Wi-Fi are only connected via USB. So the only connection between the Pine 64 and the baseband and the Wi-Fi is by USB bus. Now, this makes a lot of sense, and I'll tell you why. Because Pine 64 already had an existing motherboard. It's called the Pine 64 board that was meant to compete with a Raspberry Pi. So they made something like this, just like a Raspberry Pi kind of device. So they used most of the circuitry. They probably just took out a lot of these, all these ports. They took it out. And they're using the same circuitry that's in a Pine 64 board. So it's not much different. Now, all they had to do then was say, okay, we have to add the baseband and the Wi-Fi, and they said, okay, we'll add the baseband and the Wi-Fi. And where would you logically add the baseband and the Wi-Fi without having to start from scratch? Well, you add it to the USB plug. You wire into the USB wiring as if you wired it as if it's connected directly to USB. So it'll be recognized as a USB device. Now, why is that important? because a USB device does not have access to the memory bus of the main motherboard as it is with a normal Android phone or a normal iOS phone. So that's one of the dangers. A firmware software on an iOS device can actually have access to the memory of the main board. In fact, there's a way to bypass the CPU and access the memory directly. There's actually a separate chip you can use that's available for, it's on PCs, and you can actually bypass the CPU and then reach the memory directly. In fact, it's one of the ways they speed up memory sharing, like GPU and CPU, and that's how you get some of these faster responses, by not loading up the CPU, because a baseband has its own CPU. So the cell baseband has its own CPU in there, and by doing that, then they're able to read and write to memory directly without even the CPU being involved. Well, that's pretty scary, because if somebody has a motherboard that can read or write to CPU, and mostly read the memory, not CPU, read the memory from a foreign device like the baseband, then if some three-letter agency wanted to spy on your phone, they just have to read certain areas of memory on your phone, and then can say, that's what you're doing. They can probably do remote access Trojans and things like that from the baseband. So that is a very, very scary thought. Very, very scary. Now, the Pine 64 and even the inexpensive Pine 64, why does a baseband need its own CPU? It's not why. They're made with their own CPU, just like the Wi-Fi has its own CPU. There's many devices now are sold as SoC, system on a chip. System on a chip, not just a chip, system on a chip, a full computer on a chip. It's called SoC. If you don't know what an SoC means, it's a computer on a chip. They sell it to you as a chip, but it's actually its own CPU and everything. The baseband is often sold as a unit, as a system on a chip, because then they can get FCC approval for the chip by itself without even connecting to a phone. FCC approval is a very long process. So by using the same baseband, they'll say, "Oh, okay, we have this baseband, and we'll get approval a year in advance, and then we just include it in the phone." But the baseband is approved separately as a system on a chip, and it can have its own FCC certification just for the SoC, system on a chip. And that's why they do that. So it's independent. It runs its own CPU. Everything is done by it, and they can test it by itself, and it runs kind of in an isolated way. Now, that is not what Librem and that's not what Purism did. Purism bought what Purism did, and if you think back to their approach, I don't know if this was the only solution, because Pine 64 definitely came up with another solution. The solution that Purism came up with, it shows you the difficulty of making phones here. The solution that Purism came up with is to actually get a hotspot Wi-Fi. If you buy those MiFis, they're hotspot Wi-Fis, and you have your own personal Wi-Fi using a LTE. They sell those. You can buy those. For example, you can get a Netgear 4G LTE, a router, not router, but modem from Amazon. So it's like $149, and what it is it's actually a modem LTE. So it connects to I'm looking at the wrong camera. The camera's over here. It's looking at it's basically LTE, and then it terminates to a Ethernet port. So then, therefore, you get internet at the other end. So that has a chip in there that hotspot chip, that is the kind of thing that was purchased by Purism, and that's what was put into a Librem phone. They got one of those chips, and that's not plugged into a Netgear LTE, but they just plugged it in directly to the Librem 5. So it's a hotspot device. So it's actually separate. Now, in contrast, Pine 64 just said, "Oh, we don't need that. We can just use this baseband and wire it to the USB port." So they found some cheaper solution. I'm not sure why, not sure why they had to go, since it has a blob anyway, so there's no real what is the actual difference between having the blob, the firmware on a Pine on a Librem 5? How is that different from the baseband that's on a Pine 64? And by the way, because on the Librem 5, it's on a USB bus, it was a very simple deal to make a kill switch, because the kill switches, they actually put everything on the USB bus. All the sensors, the cameras, the Wi-Fi, everything is USB. So they wired it as USB. So then all they have to do is to cut off the power by terminating the connection to USB, and with dip switches, and they were done. Now that's not what Purism did. They made individual M.2 sockets. You plugged in the device in there. It seemed like and it made it thicker as well. And I'm not sure how that's better than the Pine 64. The Pine 64, actually, think about it, is actually solving the same problems that the Librem 5 did, much more cheaply, and I'm not sure it's less safe. From what I've learned now, it's a pretty good solution. USB, simple. I think it's okay. So I think that the Pine 64 is actually, a good solution. That's cheaper, and it's probably slow, but maybe that's better than a Librem 5 that's expensive and slow. If the Pine 64 is slow, just like a Raspberry Pi, but it's inexpensive, then I'm not going to feel too bad about it, because the price, it's the price I paid for it. Now someday I hope that somebody comes up with an actual fast speed phone, fast processor phone with fast Wi-Fi, and these two models are not it. That's what my problem is. They didn't build the ultimate phone. I wish they built the ultimate phone. For $720 that I paid for the Librem 5 with tax, I wish it were actually the ultimate phone with a fast CPU, and I'm not getting that. But I have to get one just to see how it works, so I can tell you guys it's gonna be the cost I have to eat to show you to do my videos. Hello, Cry Freedom. Hello, Glarbs. How do I pronounce you? Glarbs 10 Ford. Glarbs 10 Ford. By the way, baseband on SoC also is programmable for various radio frequency configurations that can be updated. Well, Frosty Flake, I wish it were only that simple, right? You're an insider, and if some of you who don't know what Frosty Flake knows, he's more of an expert on telecom, and the problem is that those baseband chips are super programmable. They have ROM that can probably be updated, kind of like FPGA. What is it? FPGA, programmable gate array. What is the programmable gate array? What is the F again? Field programmable gate array. So a baseband typically has some field programmable areas, meaning ROMs that can be updated remotely, and then part of the code is also kept in the SIM card. So it is very configurable, and in theory, updatable with new code, even with carrier updates. So it's very, very dangerous because you're getting updates from the manufacturer or from three-letter agencies that you do not know anything about. So to me, it's kind of scary when you have a device that's updatable. I'd rather just throw it away rather than get an update. I'd rather just throw it away and say, okay, can I just unplug that chip and throw it away and give me a new one? I've been paying $600 to get spied on, $650 to get a working Linux phone. It's cool. I'll probably get a Pine phone too. You pronounced it correctly. Oh, thank you. Glarv's Tettenford. That's too long. Man, I mean, my eyes, I can't see that. I need a microscope. Okay, I'm reading like really, really tiny script, and it's like, am I actually seeing all those letters? Most YouTubers just call me Glarb. Okay, okay, I'll keep it short, Glarb. So, $5 million to develop a real decent phone minimum and do a baseband SoC. Well, one of the difficulties, if you look at companies like Purism, they said, okay, we need to come up with a new baseband. Well, you can't just do that because of patents. That's one thing I want to talk about. The baseband, the cell communication portion, it's called the baseband. The baseband is done by two companies, Qualcomm and MediaTek. MediaTek is a Chinese company, and Qualcomm is a U.S. company. They do all the basebands, these two companies, and they own. Between these two companies, they own the majority of all the patents related to the baseband. So even Apple has to go to Qualcomm for the baseband. Okay, Apple may have a lot of patents relating to the phone itself, but as far as the baseband is concerned, that is controlled by Qualcomm. Now you're going to go to Qualcomm. So most of the U.S. phones are powered by Qualcomm chips, Qualcomm SoCs. So most of the U.S. chips are Qualcomm SoCs. Now what are you going to do now? You go to Qualcomm and you say, I'm going to build a new phone called a Librem 5, and we want you to make us a custom baseband with no blobs on it, no firmware that can attack us, no updatable firmware or open source, and that's the only way we want to do it. And what is Qualcomm going to say to you when you go to them with that? How many phones are you building? And then they say, well, we want to build 10,000 phones. And then Qualcomm will laugh hard and say, ha, ha, ha. We sell a zucking billion phones. Okay? Those chips are probably go to 1 billion phones a year. MediaTek is Taiwan. Well, that's kind of good to know, Frosty Flake. So it is not, MediaTek is Taiwan. Very interesting. I like that information. My girlfriend overheard the podcast and now she can't stop talking about being Zuck. Everyone is Zuck this, Zuck that. Zuck Bogus Johnson. I'm going to be demonetized till morning. Every time I say Zuck in my video, my videos get demonetized for the live stream portion. And then they release it in the morning because they notice that Zuck is not a bad word. So yes, YouTube algorithm, Zuck is not a bad word. So anyway, MediaTek in Taiwan, that's pretty, ha ha ha, Qualcomm needs to drop their attitude and ego. Why would they, Greg Gold, why would they do that? Who is Purism? They're going to say, who the Zuck are you? 10,000 units, we make 1 billion. So we're not going to go change our chips for you. And besides, it's our patent. You can't copy it. So you're zucked. That's what that's what that's the problem um, the Librem 5 had. So their choice was, well, what do we do? So they started to get a the hotspot kind of wireless baseband and just plug it in and do a plug-in version. Uh, but Pine 64 found a baseband, probably your standard MediaTek Qualcomm baseband, but they just plugged it into the USB port. When am I getting my Librem 5? April. So when am I getting my Pine phone? I don't know, a couple of weeks, hopefully. I know a couple of Qualcomm BOD folks, and they use some of my IP. Yeah, they do. Maybe you can interview them, Frosty Flake, and pass some information to me on some of what I say. And it'd be nice to get some insider verification of some of the stuff. What exactly is in those blobs? Is it theoretically possible to, to change the programming? After delivery, like a FPGA, field programmed gate array. So I just pre-ordered one myself. Which one? The Pine 64. Yeah. By the way, MediaTek uses TSMC and new 7 or 5 nano chips coming. Yeah. So, by the way, what operating system are you going to use on a Pine 64? Let's say you get one in a couple of weeks, like I am. Okay. I hope it's going to come in a couple of weeks. I don't know for sure, obviously, but let's say I get a Pine 64 in a couple of weeks. I'll be so happy because then I can make a video about it. I'm always happy to have something I can do a video about, and that will definitely be a video if I can get that. We'll do an unboxing, and then we'll preload Ubuntu Touch on it, because that's the only one I can use right now. And then I can preload, and then I'll have a lot of videos. If I can get that, there'll be several videos coming, because I'm gonna do a first unboxing, then I'll run Ubuntu Touch on it, check the Bluetooth, see if Bluetooth works, see if there are any other bugs that are fixed, because it's a Linux phone rather than an Android phone. And then after I get that done, then I'm gonna run Plasma Mobile on it. Plasma Mobile, and Plasma Mobile uses mainline Linux from Alpine Linux. It's called Postmarket OS. So it's going to be a mainline Linux kernel. And I like to see, how to use a phone with just mainline Linux, where I can do, normal desktop apps and all that, instead of the restricted model of the Ubuntu Touch. Ubuntu Touch is very restricted. It's good for phone users, and but I like more excitement. I like to be able to, I figured out how to control this phone. So for those of you, who don't know if you can really get into an Ubuntu Touch, I have a kind of a blog area on Brax.me. It's called a room. There's a room for Ubuntu Touch, and I actually made some notes to myself on how to do SSH, how to transfer music in here, and how to all do that, and plug in USB, set up a VPN, change the fonts, and do some of the things kind of like you do on a Linux machine. I've started to configure that on this, so I am able to do it fairly easily. I can SSH into this, and so anyway, this is that's doable. I want to be able to do that to the Pine phone, and to be able, and I can do that using Ubuntu Touch, but I'd like to try it using Plasma Mobile, and see if I can do everything I want to do on desktop Linux. Everything. I want to run my own app, and I want to be able to basically control everything that you would do on a Linux, device. Like on Debian, you just say apt get install whatever. I like to be able to just install anything, and maybe I need to plug in a HDMI screen to see it, but it would be nice if I could do that. You know, if I have a little cable and a TV set, plug it into the TV, and you can see the full phone. I'd like to try that. That issue is called convergence, where they want to make the interface the same and the operating system the same between a phone and a desktop. And I'm really interested in that, and that is not happening on Ubuntu Touch. This was the device this was the operating system that's supposed to push convergence. This is not ready for convergence. Not ready. So I want to try it on a different OS just to see it. That's not for normal people, guys. You do not. If you want a Nexus 5, you can get this. It's fine. It's just because I'm a developer, so I have a different mindset. I like to experiment with things, and I like to be able to do things and push it to the limit and see what I can do on a phone. Can I run, for example, VirtualBox, or any kind of virtual machine on a phone? And then with a virtual machine, you can run something else. I'd like to see if you can do that. Can I do development work when I'm away and I only have a phone in my pocket and it's an emergency and somebody needs me to dial in? And if I have a Bluetooth keyboard, like a tiny Bluetooth keyboard, could I do some programming? I mean, I like to try things like that, just in theory. So I'm excited by that because that's not happened on iOS or Android. That's not a story right now. It's not doable. I certainly would not ever think of programming on my iPhone. It's kind of a waste of time. Am I going to get a Pinebook Pro at some point? No, I don't think so, Glarb. No, I have like a stack of, at any point here, I have a stack of Raspberry Pis. I mean, how many? I have 3 Raspberry Pis right within reach here. These are all my own products. Okay. Oh my gosh! I dropped my camera. The camera I sell. I hope I didn't break it. So these devices are all Raspberry Pis. I have a stock of Raspberry Pi, so I don't think I need to get a Pinebook, since really they're just, it's just going to be a slow device. I have enough laptops that I don't need to have it. I can do the same development with Linux on a Raspberry Pi. Now, if you are, let me just make a note here of something I didn't know about the Pine 64. I actually would have liked to transition and use a Pine 64 board instead of a Raspberry Pi. And there's something that you may not know about a Pine 64 board, and I I like the Pine 64 people; they're very nice. But there's some facts that we got to deal with, and the fact is, a Pine 64 board does not have FCC approval. Hello, Mr. H. A Pine 64 board does not have FCC approval. So that's fine for your own development use. But if you're going to resell it, like if I sold a Brax Wi-Fi with a Pine 64 board, I'm going to have to get FCC approval. Well, Doc, there's no way I can do that. I mean, there's no way. So I don't know how a maker is supposed to deal with a Pine 64 board with no FCC approval if you're going to use the device with radio emissions. So, not sure. Somebody will have to answer that for me. Maybe somebody from Pine 64 can tell me. Maybe Lucas can tell me from Pine 64. But I think the Wi-Fi is actually a separate unit. So does that have FCC approval? Maybe separately. But that kind of puts a problem because their website actually says that they don't have FCC approval for a Pine 64 board. So as a maker, that's what you call people like me that makes devices that use these single board computers. As a maker, that puts me at a disadvantage because I'm just a small business. I can't afford to get a FCC approval. A Raspberry Pi has FCC approval. Okay, so it's pretty much just a Pi 4 with 2 cores and 4 A53 cores instead of 4 A72 cores. Glarb, a Pine 64 is faster, at least twice as fast, sometimes 4 times as fast, 2 to 4 times as fast as a Raspberry Pi. So Pine 64 is faster. And with the faster memory, it's actually significantly faster. It can go up to 10 times faster with anything that requires a lot of memory access with a Pine 64 if you look at some of the benchmarks between a Pine 64 and a Raspberry Pi. But the absence of an FCC approval kind of puts a damper on that because I don't have a choice. I don't want to go, get a fine from the FCC for selling a product where the profit margin is only, $50 or less. So, how the heck do I do that? I don't sell enough of them to say I'm going to spend, $100,000 to get FCC approval. I don't have that kind of resources. So that's going to be an issue. So yeah. So I'm kind of wondering about about that on the Pine 64. So that's a question I don't have any answer to. By the way, since I've been moving my action here to YouTube, I don't really get too many viewers on Periscope anymore. So the question is, should I even stay on Periscope? Should I even, I have a fraction of people watching on Periscope now compared to the old days. So should I even broadcast on Periscope? Can someone explain to me why I should do that? Because it's just one more device I got to think about and it doesn't really help me anymore. But the Raspberry Pi has hardware video acceleration. What about the Pine 64? The Pine 64 uses Mali, or Mali, or however you pronounce that. And that should be the same. I think that performs pretty well compared to Pine 6. I just do YouTube. Periscope is that you will get more users to go to YouTube. Not really, Eagle Source. I'm not getting any new viewers on Periscope, so it's there's not much of an advantage. Look, there's a handful of people on Periscope, so just wondering why I even bother, since 90% of my focus is on YouTube. It's just one more thing to worry about, and as in I just upload on YouTube. I don't do Periscope anymore. So you don't, but you still watch, but you're still watching on Sees Nails, but you're still watching on Periscope. I don't even do that anymore. I'm most of the time I'm just on YouTube now. Most of the time I'm watching YouTube videos. I don't hardly ever go to Periscope anymore. So, and a lot of my friends have already moved over and expect me on YouTube. So, real friends will show up consistently no matter what. Shameful Periscope has low numbers. It's not, it's can't blame Periscope for that. It's the users have left. Those 3-letter guys will give you trouble as well, even with 100K. We should all move to Periscope? No, don't do that. Because 11.5 has an ad SD card slot and a separate internal storage, do you think that people could dual boot mobile Linux operating systems? Yes, Android user, absolutely. In fact, that's what you can do on a Pine phone. The Pine phone, um, uh, GPU Mali in both. Yeah, I saw some benchmarks of the video acceleration and all that, and they're close on a Pi 4 versus a Raspberry Pi. I think the Pine 64 was a little bit faster, if I recall. But I think it's okay. The Librem 5 uses a different version of Mali, and that one is faster for sure. So the GPU on the Librem 5 is faster. Milk scope until it's dry. Well, almost dry. That's what I'm saying. It's only J is on Periscope. So yeah, Periscope is almost dry. That's why I'm asking the question. So you will still have people watching on Scope too. Yes, people will watch on Scope, but it doesn't really help if I don't get the point of the point of doing I just stopped Twitch. The point of splitting multiple platforms is to get them over to YouTube. But once they're over on YouTube, then why? I mean, my total number of subscribers that came from Periscope to YouTube is probably 500. Maybe only 500 people came from Periscope out of my 6,400. Out of 6,400 subscribers, only 500 of that were from Periscope, and they're already on YouTube now. So it's kind of like, what am I doing? So yeah, Kelp will remain on on Periscope. Times change, so must we. So okay, so I'll I'll experiment in the next broadcast. I will not do Periscope. We'll do an experiment and see if it matters, because the numbers on. I want to make the numbers on YouTube stronger, and we get stronger if we focus on one platform. So people are faking their numbers on Periscope. How boring. Yes. Thank you, C's Nails. I'm just saying, yeah, but it's it's a matter of focus. Sometimes people complain they can't see the comments on YouTube, and people say they can't see the comments on Periscope, and I'm kind of diluting it for the people watching. So So if you're watching on Periscope now, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. We are live on YouTube, Rob Braxman Tech. So if you're on Periscope, if you want to catch me on YouTube, make sure you remember that name and you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my broadcast. Good. Yeah, I'll try it, and then if it doesn't work too well, then I'll bring it back. We'll see. It doesn't have to be permanent. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. We get to try different things out and see what happens. Anyway, if and when I get a Pine 64 phone, so I'm going to push the Librem 5 discussion to later, because I'm not going to get one for so long. It's kind of frustrating to keep talking about something that you'll never see. So April is too far away. And by the way, it starts shipping in April. I may get it in May. I mean, my goodness, I'll be in the middle of summer. And, I'll be on to different topics by then, by the time this Librem 5 shows up. So I'm going to just push that aside. And I'm going to do a lot of experiments with the Pine 64 phone, which I already told you is likely slower than the Nexus 5. This is going to be a faster device. However, the idea that you can have multiple SD cards, please hit like on my stream, because the algorithm looks at that. If you like my broadcast and you watch, the algorithm says, oh, okay, this guy is worth sharing with other people, and then they start sharing my videos, and this channel succeeds. So you are part of my success here. If you my friends support me, then this channel survives and thrives and will be around here for a while. So please help by hitting the like button, or if you dislike, hit the dislike button. Just hit something. You can hit like or dislike. Why do you keep? Why do they keep pushing it out? Another question to consider. Uh, because they have problems. Uh, shouldn't we move away from Google YouTube to a more open system? Unfortunately, you will not be found. So I realize this. I have my own platform, Brax.me, and I said to people, hey, why do you go to YouTube? Why don't you watch videos on Brax.me? Brax.me has videos too and live streaming and all that. You can do that on my platform. In fact, heck, I have my own platform. I don't need YouTube. I don't need anything else. The problem, folks, is YouTube is the second largest search engine in the zucking world. YouTube is the second largest search engine. So you're telling me that I'm supposed to, how do I get new users in if I start to go to all the different, different streaming options, which I even have. I have a platform with live streaming and videos. I don't need to go to another platform. I have my own. And yet I know that if I do that, no one will see me. So that's not going to work. So I'm not going to dilute the channel by going to another place where I already even have my own solution for it. If you want privacy, you can watch videos on Brax.me, and I don't even load it there. And it's actually sensible to load my own videos on Brax.me. But you see, if you watch a video on Brax.me, you cannot watch it in public. You cannot link it to someplace else. You have to watch it from within the platform. So bring normal people to this. To bring yes, share a message. You have to take. Yes, to share a message, you have to take this step. To bring normal people to this. That's unfortunately what I have to do. And when I get big enough, like PewDiePie, I say, hey, I have my own platform. Go to my other platform, where we don't have to worry about the rules on here. At the moment, I'm at their mercy. They can decide to shut me down, in which case I'll be I'll be sucked. But if you know what my status is, there's always a way to find me on my platform, Brax.me. So there's always a way. We're doing an open video search in connection with VeriSign, including all YouTube. No rules. Yes, so I don't have, my platform is open, no rules, and no censorship and no nothing. And and sometimes you don't like what you see on Brax.me because there is no censorship. So you have to take your own precautions to block people yourself, and that's up to you. So you have to do your own blocking. You have to learn to ignore what you don't want to see and avoid people you don't want to see, because the platform itself doesn't censor anything. So and yes, I can do videos in there, and in fact this is being broadcast on Brax.me right now, but I'm not watching the comments. So if that platform starts, if a lot of you move over, then I'll be able to rethink that. But I don't need to go to a third party. I don't need to go to any other video platform when I have my own. That's the unique thing about me. I have some skills. I can develop anything. So Brax.me is a full social media. I mean, it has everything on there. You can do file storage, photo storage, file sharing, photo sharing, blogging, chats, end-to-end encryption, live streams. Zach, what can't you do on that platform? You can do anything. So I did that, but I don't have the resources to market it, and it runs pretty well, and I don't have the resources to push it, and I don't have the resources to develop it over and over. So so that's why I have to go to YouTube. So you have a particular set of skills. Yes, sea snails moved over. Yes, I'm I would say that my software development skills are way above average. Yes. Is there email yet? I took it out. Yes, I had email, and I said I'm going to lie to you if I offered email on Braxme, because if I offered you email, you would think that email is safe like Proton Mail. When the reality is, if I had a product just like Proton Mail, I tried it. I put it into Braxme, and so Braxme had mail on it, and then I could see the metadata and the non-secure messages, and I started to learn too much about people, and I said, I don't want to do this, because I'd be faking you out, because most of the messages are not going to be encrypted. 99.99999% of everything that comes into email will be wide open, so the people at Proton Mail will be able to see it. So what's the point? Cry freedom. Thank you, Bill Bob. Very nice library behind you. Can you show us a book? Yeah. Yeah. Tons of books. Here. There's a book for you, Retta. But we were just talking about, should I even do a broadcast in Periscope? So, yeah. That's a good question, Retta. Should I even do broadcast in Periscope? Doesn't even matter. So I'm actually thinking that maybe it doesn't matter. So no, stand up and go back and get a book. No, it's too far away. I don't want to do that, Retta. Too far away. You can see how far it is. Too far. That's, too much of a walk. Damn it. I'm marketing. So yes, Bill Bob. I know. Yes. Yes. So what mail should we use if Proton Mail is zucked? All email is zucked. So all email is zucked. Therefore, when you use email, understand that it's zucked and use it accordingly. Thank you, Sam. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving as well. So email is is definitely zocked up. So if you're, you have to ask yourself the question, what the heck are you putting in email? I don't hardly ever respond in email. It's kind of a rare moment when I do. And sometimes I have to, and I try to make sure that nothing important is passed in the email. And also, responding to emails without a VPN is very, very dangerous. In fact, having a device without a VPN router that has email on it is very scary, because you're basically sending out your IP address in the background, something called a beacon attack. So since most of you will not have a VPN router, if I need to trace you, even if you have a VPN normally, and I'll do it in the background when your phone is in your pocket, I'll send you a beacon attack, and that'll ping you and give me your IP address, and I'll find your location out. And then I gotcha. Okay, do reverse IP lookup, and then there it is. Then I have your name. Then I go to Facebook and dox you, and you're docked. Should we migrate to Signal instead of email? You should migrate to Brax.me instead of Signal, because if you migrate to Signal, then your contact list and your phone numbers are now migrated to the world. Because Signal, WhatsApp, Telegram, all these apps identify you by phone number. So it's a zucked up way of identification, because when people upload a contact list, they match the phone number to your identity, and they know who you are. So I don't like that. So that's the biggest flaw in Signal and WhatsApp and Telegram. Brax.me doesn't require anything. You can call yourself anything you want. So you can call yourself Bill Bob, and you'll be fine. Do you have a holiday sale on VPNs? No, I do not have any holiday sales. I haven't changed the price on these downwards. The price of the routers actually went up. So if you haven't bought one before, they went up a month ago or so because of the price of the Raspberry Pi went up $15. You used to be able to get a Raspberry Pi for the board for $37. You can't. The same board right now is $15 more. So yeah, it's 50 some bucks to get a board. Just the board, not counting anything else, not even a power supply. By the time you get the power supply, the SD card, and all that, you're up $85 just for the hardware. So yeah, it's been bad because I guess all these trade wars, because these come from China, so they're very expensive now. So how safe is Thunderbird? Thunderbird is very safe. It's the only safe email client that cannot be beaconed. Thunderbird is the most reliable. On Linux, we use Thunderbird. It's the best email client. You can use it on Windows. You can use it on Mac. You cannot use it on a phone unless you have Ubuntu Touch. If you have Ubuntu Touch, it's very safe to use Thunderbird on this. Thunderbird is very safe. It is the only safe place for sending email, for receiving email that cannot be beacon attacked. But sending email requires a VPN. Otherwise, your IP address is included in the email. A fact that many of you don't care to know about. Even though you're using Proton Mail and you do not have a VPN, you're attaching your IP address and sending it to Proton Mail. What the zuck did you use Proton Mail for? Okay. Thunderbird Wine, not so good though. Why would you use Thunderbird Wine? Great Hair Guy moved over to YouTube. Why would you need Thunderbird Wine? Why, there's native Thunderbird on Linux. Why would you use a wine Windows flavor, Windows version? There's no need. I mean, I'm broadcasting from Linux. By the way, that's another one of my topics that I'm gonna make a video about. Is I have switched 100% to Linux. My computer is all Linux now, and is a Pine or Librem 5 phone safe from a Stingray attack? Only if you power it off. Cry freedom. So yes, it's possible, but use the switch. When the switch is on, you can be Stingray. When the switch is off, the answer is no, you cannot. So those are the only phones where you can do it because they have dip switches. They have switches. On a Pine phone, it's a dip switch. On a Librem 5 phone, it's a side switch. Wine comes non-drinkable. Wine is a virtual machine of Windows on Linux. So it's a Windows emulator. Win-E. So it's like wine. So the WIN in wine stands for Windows. So Windows emulator, wine. So that's probably what it means, Windows emulator. So why would you run Thunderbird with a Windows emulator when you can run Thunderbird on Linux native? So yeah, you can run it native. So I use native Thunderbird on my Linux machine. So I've switched 100%. I'm 100% Linux now. What did I go to school for? Finance. What is the point of using a Pine or Librem 5 if what you talk can be heard on a Stingray? The only way not to be heard on a Stingray is to not use the phone. But at least when you're not using the phone on a Pine phone or Librem 5, you can turn the switch off. That is not an option on an iPhone. If you do not want to be overheard, you cannot. Let's say you're going to a meeting. Let's say you're going to a secret meeting and you're going to be discussing something that could shake the stock market. Okay, because you're going to be releasing a new version of iPhone that is like super powered and can crack AES 256 encryption because it's tied to a quantum computer. It's called the quantum iPhone, and that's what you have. And he said, we need to talk about this, but we will only have secure devices. So either you leave your phones outside or you switch off the baseband and the Wi-Fi so we can have security. Well, you can do that on an iPhone, on a Librem 5 and a Pine 64, a Pine phone. You can switch off the baseband and the Wi-Fi and all the sensors and go into the meeting with all of the switches off while it's in your pocket. You don't have to worry about it. You cannot do that on an iPhone. On an iPhone, it will spy on you. Run voice encryption on Pine phone. Yeah, but the other party has to be doing the same thing. Tons of great info on it. Dare anyone to find it? Well, I finally lost my iPhone. Very easy. Go to iCloud and erase the data on your phone. You can do it remotely. Mark your phone as lost and your data is wiped out. So that is one of the positive things from an iPhone. The Pine and Librem 5 use SS7 too. Of course it uses SS7. Of course. It's in my video. I have a video on that. So, yes, of course. But you can switch it off. With it switched off, even SS7 isn't going to work when your phone is switched off. The phone part. You can still play a game. Meaning, if I have a Pine phone and I'm playing, Doom on it, I can play with Doom with the switches off and Stingray isn't going to work. So let's say I want to say, I'm going to move to a different cell tower. Stingray requires that you stay within a cell tower range because that's how they have to find you. So let's say I'm in LA and I want to drive to Arizona. I can keep my phone turned off all the way to Arizona. And then I show up in Arizona, then they can't Stingray me all of a sudden because I'm far away. Or I can turn off the switch and still use my phone and play with Doom. So that's a difference. You tried it. It didn't work. If it's turned on, can be located with proper capabilities. Yeah, find my phone. It can be found within 6 docking feet. But you need a second phone. So get another phone, attach it to your account, connect it to your account, log in, and if you don't have another iPhone, get an iPhone from the store. It's you can return it within 14 days free. Get another iPhone, find your other iPhone, disconnect it. It's probably out of battery, but the moment it reconnects, it will lose the signal. Mark it lost, and then return the new iPhone back to Apple, and it didn't cost you a dime. So there. It's true, Bill Bob. That's an actual technique. I actually did all this. Now I have many iPhones, so I don't need that. But I actually went to Apple and got a phone and returned. It's not that easy. Not that easy. Pinkerton is putting stingrays in taxis and helicopters and following their victims. You don't want another. I was talking about deleting the data, Bill Bob. Deleting data. If you already did it, that's fine. Yeah. No, that's all I was talking about, is deleting the data. You should not get an iPhone. So Pinkerton's putting stingrays and taxis in helicopters. They don't need to do that. They can put it on a drone. All they have to do is fly the drone up in the sky with a stingray on it, and they can find your IMSI, and then, oh, there he is, and then the local car comes in closer to you, stingrays you closer at a closer distance, and there you go. And have to use it for my well-being, Lyft and Uber. That is a problem. I don't have a solution for that because I don't use Lyft and Uber myself. But if you're dependent on Lyft and Uber, then you know you're kind of stuck. You need some sort of phone that can do Lyft and Uber. So I need some contacts. I'm stuck in an area and can't get out. Do you have to remove the battery to turn off the switch in the Librem 5 or Pine phone? No, the battery does not have to be removed. On a Pine phone, the battery is completely replaceable on the fly. You just open the back, and it's a Samsung S7. You plug it in, kind of like my camera here. You can just insert it. So you can carry multiple batteries for the Pine phone and replace it on the fly. And you can easily take off the battery if you want. Yes, very easy to take off on a Librem 5. You need tools, not just talk, but stuck. That's like coded. I wouldn't. That's like coded information. What do you actually need help about? Finding your contacts or something, or what do you need? Do you need something from your phone? Do you need something from your phone, like things that could be in iCloud? If it's in iCloud, couldn't you? Well, I don't know what you need, so I guess I could just be stating things here that have nothing to do with your problem. Because many people don't hack the iPhone; they just hack your iCloud because all of your information is on iCloud. Anyway, so I'm not gonna be broadcasting tomorrow because I'm not gonna be home tomorrow. I'm gonna see if I can get my area here set up, and then I can attempt to broadcast on Sunday, live stream. So I'm going to try that, but not tomorrow. So no stream tomorrow, but I'm going to shoot for doing it on Sunday. Okay, is the black phone voice over IP encrypted voice call safe? No. No, the black phone, no. The black phone is a scam. The black phone is basically standard voice over IP, not encrypted. They just put a VPN on the front end. So the middle part of it is not encrypted. So they only encrypt they put a VPN on the front. They encrypt the first leg to their server, to their VPN, which is their VPN, and then you go out into the open, and then presumably another person on another black phone will go back to their server. So no. I suppose if you are on the VPN and you stay within the black phone network, that could be secure, but you'd have to talk to another black phone. Kind of like Proton Mail. Proton Mail can be safe. Metadata excluded. Metadata is never safe on it. But Proton Mail, in theory, can be somewhat secure if you do Proton Mail to Proton Mail. However, your metadata is still exposed, so it's not a good idea. So anyway, so is NordVPN safe? Hell no. Come on. Why would NordVPN be safe? It's like NordVPN is like, it has a big sign saying, "We are not in the U.S." We're safe. So the three-letter agencies look at that and say, ooh, not in the U.S., not subject to U.S. warrant laws. We can go attack NordVPN all we want, and there would be no legal question or problem with it because it's in a foreign land. Let's do it. Let's hack all NordVPN servers. Let's put listening posts just at the network point just beyond the VPN servers. It's very easy to find out where the servers are, find out where the ISP is, and then put your listening post right after that. And we don't need any kind of warrant because it's outside of the US. So no, NordVPN is not safe. All of the Bytes VPN servers are in the US where it's protected by the Fourth Amendment. Can you fix the What the Zuck link, please? Where is it not working, Gary? Where's the What the Zuck link not working? Make sure you do HTTPS. Where is it not working? Okay, let me know on Brax. Yeah, I'd like to know like where it's not working. Certainly you can fix it. Can Bytes VPN be used by clients in Asia? I don't recommend that. That's too far because my servers are in the US. If you do, you will appear to be in the US. If you want that, that's cool. Then you can use it. Description in my... Okay. Maybe it's not HTTPS. Okay. Wow, I cut and paste that. That means all my videos have the same bad link, Gary G. That'll be terrible. Okay, so it's a jurisdiction thing. It's supposed to make it harder against government request. U.S. not enforceable. Same reason people keep their money. The Cook Islands. The jurisdiction request is not something. This is not like taking your money. It's something that says, can I steal your information? There's no jurisdiction issue with stealing the information before or right after it gets to the VPN. So what stops anyone from putting a sensor on the network right after the VPN server? There's no law that stops that. Crazy. No, NordVPN is crap, aside from being slow. It's crap. I have a copy of Linux Black Arch. It's 15 gigabytes and 2,000 programs for pen testing and data forensics. What is the purpose of Linux Black? I don't know what Linux Black Arch is. I don't know what that is. Is that a special version of Arch? Is that a special version of Arch? I didn't know there was a Black Arch. I don't know what that is. Gary G's the link in your YouTube description is not working. Well, we want to fix that. You want to log in? Yeah. Okay. So, but you can type in the browser whatthezuck.net. It should work. So, not good to hear that is not working, but I will fix that. So looks like we have a handful of people showing up on. So I don't even look. One OG is on Periscope, and probably the only one I know that showed up in here in the last half an hour. So I don't even look at a Periscope anymore. One OG, you should go to YouTube because that's where most people are. So there's a handful of you on Periscope, but the bulk of the people are on YouTube now. So go over to YouTube. Forget about Periscope. I was just discussing. I probably will not use Periscope for my broadcast on Sunday. We're going to do a test. We're going to skip Periscope. We're going to do only YouTube, and we'll see if that makes any difference. Okay? So we're going to do a test. I can afford to make the test. We'll focus only on YouTube and not on. I don't do Twitch anymore. I stopped Twitch. Yes, 10G, but say that on YouTube. Nobody can see you there. No one can see you on Periscope because there's very few people that watch Periscope now. Most people watch on YouTube. So it's just the bulk of my new followers or subscribers are on YouTube. So big bulk, big bulk. So yeah, I mean there's and thank you. I mean I actually didn't. I was expecting to be at. Um, I was expecting to be at a higher subscriber count as of Thanksgiving, and I fell short of that because apparently they didn't like my last video. So so my last video, people don't like to be told that that your phones are unsafe and your guests are actually destroying your privacy. No one wants to hear that. So that video didn't do too well. If we have Unix running on a VMware on Win 10 Pro rather than VirtualBox, okay, because Unix usually is run on VirtualBox. Is our browsing safe from a government agency like the Chinese government, especially in Hong Kong? Yes. Unix is a very good system. My router is a hardware version of Unix. The reason I do this is a VPN router. It does exactly what Unix does. It routes all of your traffic to either a VPN or Tor. It's called SOCKS 5 routing, which is what Unix does. Unix is very good. If you're able to use Unix, it's highly recommended. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. That's is that in pounds or what is it? What is that? Or what currency is that? Is that like a? I don't even know what currency it is. I can't. It's too small to see. Is that like from India? Windows 10 is proprietary, meaning you don't know what programs are running on it. So what was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So anyway, Unix is the end goal. If people can be satisfied with using Unix, you don't really need to do much with routers and servers and so on. But of course, Unix doesn't work on a cell phone. Unix doesn't work on many computers. Unix doesn't only goes through Tor. Can't use it with a VPN, which is faster. You can't really run Unix running videos. It's very slow. So because of that, a lot of people will use Unix some of the time, and that it makes it less safe. So for full-time use, where you want to not upset your normal habits too much and run normally, I would use a Brax Wi-Fi. Is that what it is though? Is that I can't see if it's a British pound or not. I'm not certain what it is. So maybe Peter can tell me. It looks like a British pound. Okay. You have better eyes. My eyes are. I thought it was a euro for a moment, and hello Johnny Boy. I thought it was a euro for a moment, but then I have to look again. It looks. Oh, it is. Okay, it is British pound. Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. So anyway, so yeah, Unix is unfortunately not a practical solution because it's 100% Tor only, and for that it's very slow for use. So this is an option that gives you hardware choice of using a VPN or Tor using SOCKS 5 routing, meaning routing your entire internet experience through this, which is kind of an emulation of what Unix does in hardware and works with all of your devices, including your cell phones. And there's no hardware to set up, no software to set up. Everything is handled by hardware. That is the reason why this is still better, because most people do not work with one device. I mean, look at me with my stack of phones. How many phones do I have in here? Okay? Tablets. I mean, my goodness, look how many devices I have just right here. I easily could have, 15, 20 devices running at the same time. Okay? So 15 to 20 devices running, and that's a problem. So, which is safer, Unix or Tails? They're both very, very good. Tails is an added security from Unix, and that is that Tails is non-persistent. So how is that useful? Well, let's say somebody inserted a virus or a rat because they want to be sneaky, and they say, well, I got him, he's online right now. And so somebody intercepts you and hacks your device, and using some blob or some firmware or some way into your operating system through some backdoor we don't know about, like Intel IME, and does something to your computer, it's going to go to Tails. Well, Tails is a non-persistent OS. It runs only on live CD mode. So when you turn off your computer and restart Tails, it starts from scratch with all data erased. So that makes it a little bit different. Now, that's not very usable for, let's say you want to edit a file or whatever, because the file isn't going to exist tomorrow. So that makes it impractical for daily use. However, it makes it safer. So you kind of have the choice. You subscribe watching on FreeTube on PC. It plays YouTube videos from NVIDIA's. You save your followers to a file and don't need login. You can use Store. You save your followers to file, and then it downloads the videos. Oh yeah, it just does a anonymous link to NVIDIA's. Okay, right. But I couldn't comment on chat there. I wouldn't worry too much about that on YouTube, because you can just go to Google Activity Controls and just tell them to stop YouTube tracking. You can still subscribe and stop YouTube tracking. It seems to work. I haven't been getting videos of things that I haven't done recently. For example, let's say earlier on, give you a time frame here. Let's say last year I was watching a lot of gun videos. Okay, a year ago. Then I would expect that I would always be getting gun video suggested videos from YouTube, but I turned off the YouTube tracking, and then I waited to see what happened, see if it showed up again, if things that I was watching last year, like gun videos, would show up as referrals, and I haven't seen any. So the only thing I've been seeing is related to what I've been doing now. So seems to work. So I'm not so worried now, because I know that at least they respect it. Now if they don't respect it, now you still need ad blockers, because YouTube does trace you with browser fingerprinting and all that. So you'd still need to do your ad blockers, which my VPN does automatically. So between that and just turning off Google Activity Controls, I don't really see any tracking that's done on me, so it's okay. Which is safer, Debian, Ubuntu, or Pure OS? Pure OS is Debian. So that's like it's Linux. It's going to be safer just because it's Linux. Which is safer? purism might say that Pure OS is safer because they put some extra things in there and extra apps, but the base operating system is identical. Nothing identical. I'm just trying to cut Google out of my life. They already know too much about me. I know, and they know too much about me too. But I'm doing it in other ways. This is where the tracking occurs on Google on the phone. Since I use a Ubuntu Touch or Linux phone, yeah, they can only track me through my computer, and that's been turned off. So yeah, I don't feel like I mean, I'm looking at my history and everything, and most of the tracking will occur from ad trackers, which are also YouTube. I mean, Google, but they're not YouTube. So so I haven't found it to be an issue, and I'm very conscious about that. Correction: Chris Freedom is ruining Linux in Windows 10. So the Windows 10 part is low security, anti-security. Correct. Windows sold certain areas may have additional uh, backdoors. Um, there's a little bit of truth to that, Shodi. There is a there. This may have been patched, but there's a way to get out of a virtual machine on some virtual machines, and I forget which one had the flaw. It may have been VirtualBox. I don't know. I don't remember now. It may have been VMware, but you're able to get out of the virtual machine and then invade the host. Uh, that probably was already fixed. So, okay, now the question is that really secure if you have IME, Intel IME? And you're right, Shodi, because if you have Intel IME, somebody could just copy the entire virtual machine over to a remote device, the entire virtual machine, because it's just a file. So they can copy it and then break it someplace else. So yes, you are right. You are right. And that is possible in a virtual machine. Now, that's why I still think this is still the better solution. So, keep it in the hardware. That way, then, it's isolated. Even Netflix can't detect this. I've discovered that Netflix doesn't really detect this. So it seems to work. Why? Thank you, C Snails. Did you change name, C Snails? Did you went from C something else and now it's C Snails? You're going to go to sleep. Thank you. I'd like to see the first ever receiving uh, their Librams do an honest review. That's gonna take a while. So I'll do one on PinePhone. The Windows 10 machine should have an IME, so VirtualBox. Don't make that assumption, Cry Freedom. My Intel machine does not have IME. This is a Linux computer. This is a Star laptop on my video that I'm broadcasting from. It does not have IME on it. A lot of the newer consumer computers, this one is an 8550U Intel i7, does not have IME, and I have two of these 8550U computers. One's running Windows 10, no IME, plus the fact that I ran a code to disable IME if it's snuck in. The Star laptop has a BIOS switch for IME, and then on top of that, the CPU itself does not have IME. I'm very careful. I do not buy any computer that has IME on it. The one I had before was a 7th generation i7 from the year before, same model, HP Spectre, also no IME. I've only been buying it by going to the website. I also have a Lenovo, same model from 2 years ago, that I checked the CPU, no IME. Okay, so yeah, you can make your own test to make sure that before you go to buy the computer, check the Intel site, see if it has IME on it. So mine. Now, do I believe that Intel has no IME on it? That part, I don't know. That's why it's good to have a BIOS and everything else. It could kind of double it because I don't really know. But at least Intel claims it has no IME. So, yes, Josmo, we know what the claims are, but, I think they shipped like 10. You need to create pseudonymous accounts, and through compartmentalization of your devices and taking certain precautions, you should be okay. Very good advice, Bogus Johnson. Very good advice. That's, somebody asked me earlier if I'm being unsafe by doing these YouTube broadcasts. And no, because you compartmentalize your identity for the platform. And then you don't worry about it. You have to be consistent with your identity, for whatever platform that it is. And you don't vary from that, and you don't mix it up. Cube's OS seems like the only viable option for maintaining privacy. No, Tails and Cube's OS. Cube's OS runs just like Unix, but without the host. So Cube's OS is Unix-like, but since it doesn't have a host OS, it doesn't have that risk of Unix. So Cubes is safer than Unix. Tails is safer than Cubes. But all of them are pretty much unusable for daily use because they're slow and, it's only used for super secure purposes. They're not for everyday use. For everyday use, you need something simpler, and that is to have hardware take care of all of it. This is a Brax Wi-Fi VPN router that can handle Tor. So you can choose Tor or VPN and emulate what is being done on Unix without all of that setup, since you don't have to worry about software. So Tails is the safest option, but is the most unusable because it's a non-persistent file system, whereas Cubes and Unix both are persistent. But all of them are only using Tor. They cannot use a VPN. And so that limits their usability, because what can you load on it? Okay, but Cubes should be faster, but Cubes is also, because it's not on a virtual machine, but Cubes is not compatible with most devices. So I believe it's compatible with this device, but it's not compatible with many, in which case then, I can hardly recommend something that most people cannot install. So it's not recommended because how many people can actually install it? Only 1% of the computers could be compatible with Cubes. Well, that's no fun. So anyway, so Tails is kind of an extreme option if you're like, a super spy. You carry that. So if I'm being chased by 3-letter agencies, I would use Tails only. Yeah. So, yeah. If a government shadowing one, is there a way to save a conversation over SS7 and mobile phone, be it Librem or iPhone? Yes, of course. Cry freedom. If you're going to use Cell, then you're already exposed. Some of the craziest things I've seen in Hong Kong are, people wearing anonymous masks. They go around wearing anonymous masks and they're walking around with their sucking iPhone. I mean, that's fucking crazy. Okay? You're being spied on the phone. They already know the identity of anyone there just by having a phone. It's so stupid. Don't ever go. What you should do is go to a protest and carry a Ubuntu touch phone. Now you're safe. That's the idea. Go to a protest with an Ubuntu touch phone, not a fucking iPhone or Android. Goodness, that is the most unsafe thing I can imagine. Okay? Yeah, that's the way, That's the way you go to a protest. So yeah, if otherwise, if you're gonna have a conversation, you should not. If I'm on a protest, I probably wouldn't want to make a phone call. I'd probably just send, messages over encrypted platforms like Brax.me. I wouldn't even want to use Signal because Signal identifies you by the phone number. So, Brax.me is a platform that does not connect to your phone number or email or anything. So there's nothing. It's pseudo anonymous, no IP address either. So nothing on Brax.me can be used to identify you. So we don't really know who's talking to whom. So that's not guaranteed on a Signal or whatever because you're using a phone number. So so the best way for me is to say, hey, you're in Hong Kong, use Brax.me and communicate and do whatever you want. It's encrypted, and even if somebody were so smart they figured out the encryption, which is good luck, no one's ever done. If they're able to figure out the encryption, then there's nothing to know because you don't know who's talking. There's no identity. You don't even know to go there because who's talking? You don't know what they're talking about. You don't know who they are. So, okay, don't have that SIM card on your name. That's not going to help. That's not going to help, Josmo. Come on. IMEI. That's not going to help. Maybe that's what I should talk about in my next broadcast. We'll do that. Okay, we'll talk about Hong Kong protests. What do you do to keep safe? Let's do that. 8848 M5 phone runs on the titanium and how safe? I don't know. A lot of fake news with some of these. So most of them are not safe. So you have to design a brand new phone to tell me you're safe. If you're going to use some existing hardware like Android and tell me you're safe, good luck with that. Okay? I don't think you can be safe. I don't think there's any way to do that. So we will talk. Why don't we talk about that on our next broadcast? Maybe Sunday. Can use Tails along with the Ubuntu Touch based Nexus 5. On this, you can't run Tails on mobile. No, Tails does not work on mobile. So no. But Tails is pretty safe as it is already. So, but with a baseband, nothing's safe with baseband. So we'll talk about that. How safe is your phone? What's the title for that? But basically what I'm trying to see for my next topic, we'll talk about a case like Hong Kong and how do you be safe? You're trying to be safe from the government, so they don't and you're wearing an anonymous mask. How do you stay anonymous with a phone? So let's talk about that if you can, and the answer is very limited use. Okay. Hello, Dustin. It's not a late live stream. We just went on longer than I needed to. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about that. Hong Kong. Well, I won't put that in the title necessarily, but Hong Kong protesters, how to be safe with your phone in a protest in Hong Kong, something like that. Hello, Jericho. How's your day in Australia? I just finished work and you're still going. Cases like Hong Kong, Iran, Iraq. Okay, so we'll talk about that. Sunday, not tomorrow. I'm not going to broadcast tomorrow. Okay, so see you in a couple of days. Greetings from Denmark. Hello, Martin. Okay, so see you in a couple of days. And see, that's what happens when I broadcast so late. Then I get people from Europe. that's how late I am. I get people from Europe. So see you on Sunday. I have to redo my set here, so maybe it'll be rough around the edges. On Sunday, I don't know if I can even get everything set up by then, but we'll try. Okay, we'll try getting set up by Sunday. So thank you for watching, my friends, and thank you for the good numbers here on the broadcast on YouTube. Thank you so much. So I shall see you later. Good night.